by 10 to 20,000 years of warm interglacial period, which we're in right now, an interglacial period.
Which we are prolonging. We were headed back into a glacial period.
Yeah.
And for the evidence is that for at least the last 1,000 years, temperatures were gradually declining. And we have reversed that. Now, if we'd been smart enough, which I understand we're not, we could have added just the right amount of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere to level that out and maintain ourselves in an interglacial period indefinitely. Instead, we went way over, and now we're headed into a hothouse in which the worst case scenario is that the ice caps, both Greenland and the Antarctic ice cap, will melt and sea levels will rise 300 feet.
I have friends who are naturalists and guides and so forth in Antarctic with the company I work with. And I was with them just recently, and I said, this is what I do, talking about what we all do here. Tell me what you've seen. And they said it really is happening. They looked right at it. What is it, the Larsen ice sheet that is going to be breaking off?
It's that strip of land that comes on the peninsula.
Well, Larsen B, there are different ice shelves on that land. The Larsen B ice shelf disappeared entirely, broke up and disappeared. And there had been a debate among the glaciologists, what will happen to the glaciers, the land glaciers, if the ice shelf disintegrates. And some glaciologists said, nothing will happen. You know, they'll just continue the way they are. And others said, you're delusional. When that ice shelf is gone, the land glaciers will accelerate the delivery of ice into the ocean. And and the second group of glaciologists were right, because the land glaciers have accelerated the delivery of ice into the ocean, accelerating sea level rise. Now, the Larsen C ice shelf is disintegrating. There is a piece the size of Delaware that is 90% broken off. I mean, on satellite photos, you can see this huge crack. And when it breaks off, the rest of it's warming from below. There's warm water coming up from below and thinning it and causing it to break off. And so the Larsen C ice shelf is disintegrating, and the glaciers that are held back by it are going to accelerate. This has already happened, by the way, in Greenland.
Right.
There are no ice shelves left. And the Greenland glaciers are delivering around 200 gigatons, that's billion tons, of ice annually into the oceans.
We should
Most of
appreciate
Greenland,
Elfman our
most
being
of
here today.
Antarctica
Give
is
us
probably
more
gonna
feedback.
go.
Thank you guys. Very much.
West Antarctic ice sheet, Greenland. They're mostly no.
Okay, moving right along. Thank you for your commentary. Chapter 9, Islands on Dry Land. Now here, again, we are in a rainforest, but this one is specific to Brazil. It's examples of fragmented rainforest and what happens to the ecosystem, the animals of that biome when it is fragmented. I think it was the 1970s, I couldn't find the date, the Brazilian government subsidized deforestation. They did it this following way, as they wanted that portion, that gigantic portion of Brazil to be colonized, to be lived in. They brought people out to make ranches, and I always jokingly say, just to make McDonald's beef, they cut down the rainforest, which is the oxygen, the lungs of the earth. At any rate, they said, you can have land as long as you'll keep half the land in forest. And they called this one of the oldest running ecological experiments on the idea of fragmentation. On the planet, there are 50 million square miles of ice-free Earth. 27 million are converted into antelopes. They don't call them antelopes anymore because there's very little wild left on the planet. In Brazil, directly after fragmentation, the diversity and number shot up, then started dropping and kept dropping. Steady degradation over time. These fragments in the rainforest are like island habitats that tend to be species poor. The main predictor of extinction is small population size. Recolonization is difficult. Just think, there was a good picture in here that showed these funny little shaped islands of forest and next, just total nothing there but savanna or pampa, as some would say, depending where of South America you're in. Generally, species recolonization is difficult. Local becomes regional and becomes global. Also, diversity is self-reinforcing. Here's an idea about tropical species. For every mammal species in the tropics, there are 300 tropical insect species. So the threat to the tropics is even greater than the northern climes because it's such a high number potential extinction. At the moment, the rate of tropical extinction is 10,000 times greater than the background rate. We need legal protection. The destruction of the rainforest can also mean the disappearance of rain with the hydrologic cycle. One of the features of the Anthropocene, it compels species to move or it creates barriers. It's one of the greatest biotic crises of all time. Moving on, chapter 10. Remember, we just have 13 chapters, so we're getting near the end. The new Pangea. The animal here is a bat, true hibernator. I live on a mountain called Cave Mountain. There's a very famous cave that the bat guano in it was used as part of the munitions. What was it? Saltpeter? It was part of what was used during the Civil War. Civil War to make munitions. Well, anyway, that cave is there. And we have the small brown bat, and I think there's a Michigan bat. I can't remember right now. At any rate, there's been a terrible die-off. I've also visited Carlsbad and watched the Mexican free-tails come out, zooming up out of this cave entrance. There's been a tremendous bat die-off. I can't remember the dates on it, but it's a white-nosed fungus. The bats are hanging there innocently during hibernation in the cold part of the year, and this is a cold weather fungus, probably came from Europe. And so now we're getting into the notion of invasive species, whether it's a fungus or whether it be some other type of animal. Darwin established that long distance travel for most species is impossible without human help. There are vast tracts of land on all continents that are similar, but dissimilar flora and fauna, though related. The thought then came that the continents must have shifted. Continental drift, plate tectonics, and these are the new ideas that come up in this chapter. And that at one time there was a supercontinent Pangea, like in prior times Gondwana. The striking characteristic of the Anthropocene is a remixing of the world's flora and fauna, a mass invasion event without precedent in animal history. It's like Russian roulette. Either an invasive, nothing happens, or it spreads. Since it spreads, it leaves its predators behind in the other place where it actually first originated. And the rivals are left behind, and then it multiplies like crazy. What Homo sapiens has done at the expense of other species is transplant flora and fauna, reassembling the world into a new supercontinent, and that's the reason for the title, a new Pangea. Now all the world is mixed, so to speak, and it's breaking the evolutionary chain. And just to give an example, in California, a new invasive species is acquired every 60 days, every 2 months. Before humans on Hawaii, new species establish themselves every 10,000 years. Next chapter is chapter 11, the great rhino, the rhino gets an ultrasound. This starts on page 217. The animal in this case is a Sumatran rhino. And in the 19th century, as the great forests of that part of the world were felled, the habitat shrank for this rhino, became fragmented. This is the animal, the specific rhino that's closest to the woolly rhino of the Miocene 20 million years ago. It's a living fossil. but it has difficulty with fertility. And the females are induced ovulators. They don't breed like rabbits, nor like humans. So there have to be captive breeding programs. Humans brought the population low, and now humans are trying to save it. And the anecdotal information was kind of fun. If you've ever been with a veterinarian who took care of your horse who was having a baby at 2 in the morning, and you put that glove on, you know where it goes, don't you? I won't go any further than that. I live on a farm. So the big,
What was that?
so the big charismatic mammals are in trouble. Mega herbivores were so large and have been so large, none dared to attack them. At the end of the last ice age, there were jumbos found all over the world. And it's thought that either warming climate changed the environment so the megas died out, or it was really one.
Settlers.
Within 1,000 years after man's arrival, large mammals were gone, the Paleo-Indians.
In the
Either cause
Americas.
is disturbing. So let me
Wait,
read
you're talking about the
page-
Americas there?
That's what she's mentioning,
Okay.
Paleo-Indian. Let me mention just a little quick thing on page 231. When the chronology of extinction is critically set against the chronology of human migrations, Paul Martin of the University of Arizona wrote a prehistoric overkill, that's in his paper. His seminal paper on the subject, man's arrival emerges as the only reasonable answer to the megafauna disappearance.
The primary example is North America, right?
You know, I don't remember what else is in this chapter, because she does mention New
15,000
Zealand,
years ago.
Samoas, Madagascar's giant lemurs, pygmy hippos, elephant, you know, she mentions other animals.
Australia too.
Australia too, especially, yeah, because it's
Oh,
endemic
okay,
species,
Australia.
especially endemic species, like a lot of us is endemic species. What?
Oh, I'm just,
Okay, yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out.
Australia too, like Shelley said, for sure.
You know, you gotta think about it, every time some species bites the dust, the entire ecosystem is. And we don't think of that in total picture, you think of it on isolated species.
That's the thing about indigenous belief systems that I can't wait for Gladys to do, grading sweetgrass, because we're all part of it. We're not human supremacists. We're all part of it.
It's the most difficult
Pull
thing
one
to
little piece of a
explain.
card, the house of cards, you don't know where it's gonna end. Okay, so since the Industrial Revolution and with technologies, human became world-altering force, eliminated megafauna and set off ecological cascades.
We were a world-altering force before the Industrial Revolution, for sure. The North American natives killed off the megafauna,
Yeah.
the top predators,
Yeah.
throughout North and eventually South America. And we changed the climate beginning about with the agricultural revolution. There was an important book that really showed that. And there was a certain amount of global warming, just the amount you want,
Right,
actually, to avoid the next ice age.
yeah.
If we just kept it at that level about 10,000, 8,000 years ago, that's
Is that what he was doing?
agriculture
Parts
in the
per
Mid
million?
East, we'd be all right. We just had mild warming, which would be just about right to avoid the next ice age. But instead, population.
Now, the next to the last chapter, chapter 12, starting on page 236, is entitled The Madness Gene. And what she's trying to do here is find out what makes modern Homo sapien, what makes us be where what we are. So the animal she uses is the Neanderthal. I'm going to call him an animal in this case. He was all over Europe and the Middle East. Lived in Europe for 1,000 years. Then 30,000 years ago, he vanished. Why did he disappear? Was it climate change, volcanic winter, disease? But modern humans arrived about 40,000
He
years
just
ago.
wasn't very good looking.
They're bad.
He was not attractive to the other.
They show a picture of a Neanderthal dressed as a modern human, and it just looks like my
They
father-in-law.
mix, yeah.
But there wasn't a marriage.
There was an marriage, and 2 or 3% of your genes are.
Exactly. And this is where I'm going. Don't scoop me up, don't scoop me up, or they move down here. And one of the quotes is, but their bad luck was us.
Yeah.
So we the modern human actively pursued, outcompeted, and had sex with the Neanderthal.
I don't think there's much debate anymore that Homo sapiens killed off Neanderthals. Do you think? You agree with that?
Archaic humans.
Well, I don't know about
several
debate,
different
but nobody
archaic
really
humans.
knows what happened. Did we outcompete, or
Either way,
did we interbreed and the interbreeding eliminated the pure Neanderthal eventually?
Wasn't enough.
You know, nobody knows. I mean, you know, give me a time machine and I'll go back. I'll go back and investigate.
And Colbert then asked, what made it possible for humans to build the enormous societies? And she thinks, well, it must be genetic. Europeans and Asians share more DNA with Neanderthal than Africa. That's a new thing for a lot of people. So the theory of out of Africa, the replacement theory, where humans replaced archaics, not exactly right. So it looks like with Neanderthals, modern humans had sex and populated Europe, Asia, and the New World. But now, this is the main need of this chapter, I think. What makes us different from great apes? To be precise, we humans are apes, so how different from non-human apes? There's a study done with 2.5-year-old children and chimps. The apes do everything and some things faster, but they don't read social cues well. Apes seem to lack collective problem solving. Only fully modern humans start venturing out on the ocean where you can't see land. So what is this genetic variation? What is this madness gene of restlessness, as she refers to it, defining characteristic of modern humans? Perhaps it's an inversion of a chromosome that made us dominate everything. Great apes are facing oblivion. There's a low productive rate amongst them, like during the megafauna and their vulnerability. The crash of the great apes right now due to poaching, disease, habitat loss, several wars. But what those people are modern humans, that madness gene, was it creativity, spirituality, madness? And she gives an anecdotal experience here, the Grotte des Combarelles in Dordogne, France. These walls are covered with hundreds of engravings and cannily vital. Humans who sketch walls through images, sketch these walls with images that had magical powers. Maybe that's right. Neanderthals lived in Europe for 100,000 years with no more impact than large vertebrates. Think about that, no more impact than large vertebrates. Might still be living if not for humans. That tiny set of genetic variations has made all the difference, whatever that is. Then the last chapter, chapter 13, the thing with feathers. Of course, she doesn't talk about it, well, she mentions a thing with feathers. When we get to that area. That's page 259, where it starts. The little bird that she mentions as the animal here is a Aubrey, or black-faced honey creeper. All that's left of it is in the frozen zoo, the world's largest collection of species on ice. And then she thinks a bit, humans are both destructive but also altruistic. Look, we got rid of DDT, we did the Endangered Species Act in 1974, and then here is something that's directly from Colbert. She says, though many of the preceding chapters have been devoted to the extinction or near extinction of individual organisms, the Panamanian golden frog, the great auk, the Sumatran rhino, my real subject has been the pattern they participate in. What I've been trying to do is trace an extinction event, call it the Holocene extinction, call it the Anthropocene extinction, or if you prefer, the sound of it, the sixth extinction, and to place this event in the broader context of life's history. That history is neither strictly uniformitarian nor catastrophist, rather it's a hybrid of the two. What this history reveals in its ups and its downs is that life is extremely resilient, but not infinitely so. To the extent that we can identify the causes of these revolutions, they're highly varied. Glaciation in the case of the End-Ordovician extinction, global warming and changes in ocean chemistry at the end of the Permian, and asteroid impact in the final seconds of the Cretaceous. The current extinction has its novel cause, not an asteroid or massive volcanic eruption, but one, and this is a reference made at the beginning of the book, one weedy species. As Walter Aubrey put it to me, we're seeing right now that mass extinction can be caused by human beings. The one feature these disparate events have in common is change, and to be more specific, rate of change. When the world changes faster than species can adapt, many fall out. It doesn't matter much whether people care or don't care. What matters is that people change the world. Once humans were capable of signs and symbols, us humans pushed beyond the limits of the natural world. And we too will be undone by our transformation of ecological landscape, putting our own survival in danger. One last quote, and we end her lovely book. Mass extinction, will it take us out, the strong with the less strong, or will human ingenuity outrun disaster? And here is what she says about geoengineering, by the way. There are serious scientists who argue, for instance, that should global warming become too great a threat, we can counteract it by re-engineering the atmosphere. Some schemes involve scattering sulfates into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight back out to space. Others involve shooting water droplets over the Pacific to brighten clouds. If none of this works and things really go south, there are those who maintain people will be okay. We'll simply decamp to other planets. One recent book advises building cities on Mars, Titan, Europa, the Moon, asteroids, and any other uninhabited chunk of matter we can find. Don't worry, its author observes. As long as we keep exploring, humanity is going to survive. Right now, in the amazing moment that to us counts as the present, we are deciding, without quite meaning to, which evolutionary pathways will remain open and which will forever be closed. No other creature has ever managed this, and it will, unfortunately, be our most enduring legacy. The sixth extinction will continue to determine the course of life long after everything people have written, painted, and built has been ground into dust, and giant rats have, or have not, inherited. She does an anecdote about rats, and so she pictures them in a cave dressed in loincloths made of animals. So that's what she was reflecting
I
on.
really think it's roaches.
So we need roaches and rats, so we don't have them.
Rats are pretty
So,
smart.
questions, comments, anybody? And then
The
I'm going to
National
take
Academy of
the floor
Sciences
so we can
It's
talk about.
It's 3 o'clock.
We usually break at
Should we
3:30 or
3 o'clock is the advertised time for this.
Right.
I'd like to
Stay over
I'd like
until
to
at
stick
least
on those
3:30.
times because
Well,
I know some of you have other appointments.
I thought I saw this advertised today for 1:30 to 3:30.
I sometimes say 3:30, because we usually go to 3:30.
But let's take a break at least. It gives a chance for people who need to go.
Right.
And there's
So
some
the milk
homemade
is
bread
homemade
and some nice apple butter.
Oh,
Made by the students.
the National Academy of
Stand up if
Sciences,
you need to.
geoengineering, the business of putting sulfates into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight, or mirrors into orbit to reflect sunlight, and
Spraying water.
spraying water, fertilizing the oceans with iron, et cetera, et
And they've
cetera.
done that one out of Seattle, I think.
Yeah, it didn't work well. But
Yeah.
the National Academy of Sciences was asked to investigate these. So they got a whole bunch of people who knew what they were actually doing. And they said, well, first of all, there's no assurance, some of these things are actually horrifically destructive. For instance, putting sulfates into the atmosphere, acid rain is already a bad problem. That would just make it 100 times worse, some of them are directly harmful.
Sure.
And they said, even if you can't point to a direct harm immediately, there are always unintended
Exactly.
consequences.
That's the thing I fear for geoengineering.
And Now, there are things we could do. For instance, you could breed symbiotic species that, for coral reefs, that endure higher temperatures. But unless you do something about the basic problem,
Right.
which is global climate change, nothing will be sufficient. The people are talking about adaptation. Oh, we'll build levees along the coast to cope with rising sea levels, and we'll do this and we'll do that. We'll breed crops that can withstand drought
Saltwater
better
intrusion,
and stuff
too.
like that. But unless you do something about the basic problem, which is our changes to the atmosphere, adaptation will never be enough, because it will always be a receding goal. It will always be getting worse and worse and worse. And so none of your adaptations will ever be sufficient unless you address the basic problem. And that's the thing that the Republicans will not do. They will not address the basic problem.
Because it's economic. They think of it as being economic. Isn't that the way you look at it, Malcolm? They're afraid to lose the money basis.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, now, how many of us have ever heard of the children's lawsuit?
Oh, yeah, I have. Shelley, I know you have too.
Okay, well, there's been a lawsuit filed against the government by children
They want it.
that, because they said, the refusal to address climate change is destroying our future. Now, all you old farts may be dead when the worst stuff happens, but we'll still be alive, and our children will still be alive. And so you need to do something about it now, and it is proceeding through the